that's exactly what has been happening. And there is no question that the media also have a responsibility to pay here, and I include everybody in the media, mainstream, new media, all of us. And the classic case is the case of the balloon boy. Do you remember the balloon boy? Endless wall-to-wall coverage. Well, anyway, he turned out to be the attic boy rather than the balloon boy. But even leaving that aside, maybe what we need to do is create a massive balloon. And we don't even have to put them in. Just pretend we are putting in the 13 million children living in poverty in this country and see if we can get 1% of the attention that the balloon boy got. We need to put the spotlight on people's lives and how have been affected. We need to put flesh and blood on the numbers. That's what we're doing at the Huffington Post. We have a dedicated reporter now. We are going to call him our economic suffering correspondent, but it seemed too dreary, so we're calling him our economic impact correspondent, whose job is to find the families that are dealing with the consequences of the economic devastation and tell their stories, because that's the way to capture the public imagination and demand real fundamental change. And just look at the opportunity cost of what we have done. We have, for example, just for 2011, a budget gap across all the states of $180 billion. Now, everyone here in California knows what that means when it comes to cutting fundamental services, to firing teachers, firing policemen, eliminating healthcare opportunities for people in trouble. And yet, just remember, it was $180 billion that we gave to bail out AIG. If we had that money back, we would have had to make no cuts across all the states of the union. And among that $180 billion, almost $13 billion went to Goldman Sachs, 100 cents to the dollar because they were a counterparty. Are you surprised that people are angry? This anger is legitimate. We need to make sure that it is funneled into the right direction. We need to make sure that it leads to real reform rather than violence. But if it doesn't lead to real reform, we are in real trouble. And that's where we come back to something that has been the truth across all American history, which is that every real change has happened because of a movement. My favorite story that illustrates that is March 1965, when Martin Luther King met with Lyndon Johnson and asked for the Voting Rights Act. And Lyndon Johnson said, "We don't have the votes." And then came the Selma March. And a few months later, in August, we had the Voting Rights Act. So let's not forget that. In the end, it's going to be about Hope 2.0. You know, Hope 2.0 is about people demanding fundamental change. It's about people making sure that we have more change than just what Olympia Snow is comfortable with. Because the vision of government that began by the New Deal of FDR was extended during the Great Society of Lyndon Johnson and now is struggling back towards relevance, is the vision that holds that the forces of government should be marshaled to improve conditions for the greatest possible number of Americans, with particular emphasis on the excluded and the disadvantaged. And this vision of government is something that we can all proudly stand behind. And if we do, then I have no doubt that we'll be able to bring the American people with us. But it has to be an unambiguous vision of government. It has to be followed through with real accountability, and it has to be absolutely clear-cut that capitalism is not about socializing losses and privatizing gains. Because that's what we have right now. And ultimately, that's what the people are feeling. The sense that somehow the special interests are prevailing because they know how to play the game. Goldman Sachs has given just as much money almost to Republicans as to Democrats. John Paulson, the man behind this particular instrument that Goldman Sachs is at the moment, has the SEC after it, has been a major contributor to the Democratic Party. That's why I'm calling on you to actually be the watchdogs. It's not going to be enough just to expect our elected officials to do their job. They need to recognize that if they don't, you are going to be after them. This is the moment for all of us, whether we're in the media or whether running for office or whether supporting those for running for office, to, in many ways, empower people to be participants in what is happening. That's why we launched the Move Your Money campaign. And let me end on this, because it has been really an amazing success for people to feel that if the government isn't going to take the big banks and make them smaller so that they are not too big to fail and so that the taxpayer is not once again on the hook, then let's do it for them. We can move our money out of the big banks. And those in this room who also can move the city money and the state money out of the big banks have a huge power. Let's use it. And cities and states across the country are doing that. In Massachusetts, in New Mexico, in Maryland, here the city of Los Angeles has basically passed an ordinance that if the banks they're dealing with are not reinvesting in the community, well, they can deal with different banks. So let's bring back all these fundamental issues of competition and real free enterprise and real accountability so that we can all come together and save the middle class that is really in trouble right now. And this is the window we have for reform. Let's use it. Thank you.
She has kindly agreed to answer a few questions. She's going to make me buy a computer. That was so damn good, I'll tell you. We're going to have to shout out or raise a hand or do something.
Yes.
Turn the mic. Is it on? Oh,